Okay, in this session, we're doing the caliper assembly as well as bleeding the brakes. I also ended up filling up the coolant, but that's very straightforward and pretty uneventful, so we'll just kind of gloss over that. For the calipers, it's pretty straightforward. I forgot to mention last time that the calipers are sighted, so you will want to check. There's a L and R stamped on the calipers for which side they belong to. Just make sure you get them on the right side. When you install the calipers, make sure to lock tight the bolts uh, from the hub or the Dion ears to the caliper mount. I didn't do that because I think I mentioned last time my spacers were incorrect. I haven't gotten that resolved yet, so I didn't fully tighten and torque them and put Loctite. I'll have to go back and do that. Also, you're supposed to copper grease the brake pads where the pistons will touch, and I guess the outside of the pads basically. I didn't do that. I forgot to do that, so I need to go back and do that. Although I'm realizing it might be kind of difficult to lift the top of the caliper off since I've attached the brake line. Um, so I'll have to figure out a way to do that. Um, so the calipers require these black pins that go into the rubber boot. I found mine in one of my Z packs. They kind of look like bolts, except they don't have threading on them. They're black colored. They're maybe 2 to 3 inches long, and then the head itself has threading, so a bolt can thread into it. These pins go into the little rubber boot on the caliper mount. My rubber boots are pre-greased. If yours are not, you should grease it. Um, and then that's it. You sort of just slot them into the caliper mount. You put the caliper mount in. You put a bolt through the DD on ears and the spacers into the caliper mount, the pins, and you tighten them up. And then you put the brake pads in. You slot the brake pads in, and then you just cover it with the top of the caliper. Um, my brake lines weren't perfectly aligned with where the caliper where they're supposed to thread into the caliper, so I had to bend them a little bit. I didn't have a brake line bender or a pipe bender, so I kind of just used the biggest socket I had. I just sort of pushed the pipe over it, sort of contoured over it to curve it to the right spot. Um, so to go back to my spacer problem, my kit had 4 spacers that were all the same inner diameter or bore and outer diameter. So the inner diameter was 10 millimeters because the bolt is a 10 millimeter. And then the outer diameter was 20 millimeters. It's about the same as the caliper mount that it fits on, the part of the mount that it fits on. But 3 of them are 6.4 millimeters thick. One of them is 7 millimeters thick. I probably want to get them all even. Even though after it installed, the spacing looked okay, I guess, but I think I want to get them all even. And it looks like 7 millimeters is the thickness I actually will want. So uh, I tightened a disc brake um, so that it's flush against the brakes and so I can get an accurate measurement for the gaps. With the 7 millimeter spacer, the distance between the brake disc and the caliper, uh, sort of the inside of the caliper where the pads would be, was 2.2 millimeters on both sides. With the 6.4 millimeter thick one, it looked like it was 2.4 millimeters on the inside and about 2 millimeters on the outside. Not exactly the same. And keep in mind, with my measuring calipers, even though that's a very precise instrument, it was very hard to get a good angle to measure it. So some of this is kind of guesstimated essentially. But I'll probably end up getting 7 millimeter thick spacers. I went to a few hardware stores. It's been really hard to find. I may just have to wait for my dealer or Caterham to send me some. The rest of the night, my friend came over and we bled the brakes. The Caterham manual has you doing the rear driver side, the rear passenger, front passenger, and then the front driver. For us, it took a really long time for the fluid to even show up in the rear driver's side, the very first one you bleed. The rest came out pretty quick. But as any brake bleeding process, it just takes time. Someone sits in the cockpit and pumps the brakes. The other person lets the air out. While you're doing that, you should check for leaks on all of the brake line connections. And not just like big leaks like drips, but you want to check for some seepage too. So I just ran my finger underneath any place where a brake line was making a connection to see if there's any brake fluid seepage. And then the last bit was I filled the coolant and checked for leaks under the car to make sure that the coolant wasn't leaking. My dealer recommended, I believe, something called water wetter. It's like a coolant additive. It's sort of like a pinkish color. So I also added that as well.